Hey everybody, welcome to the Entrepreneur Motivation Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Bello, and today I've got Jeff Lerner on the show. Jeff, it's great to have you here.
So glad to be here, man. A fellow Houstonian.
Love it. We were talking about that right before we hit record. I mean, I know you're not lying because you named too many streets that are close to me, to be making that up or Googling it on the side. So awesome to connect with you, Jeff. And I'm going to do your bio real quick just so our audience has an idea of who you are. So after a decade of building multiple online businesses to 8 figures and twice landing on the Inc. 5000, Jeff turned his focus to educating and inspiring entrepreneurs about the power of digital businesses. In 2018, he founded Entre Institute, where over 50,000 students have been introduced to his digital real estate concept. He's now regarded as one of the most inspirational voices in business and personal development. Jeff's interest in entrepreneurship began in his 20s when, as a pianist, he was often hired to play in the homes of successful CEOs and business owners. In 2008, at age 29, after multiple failed ventures, including a restaurant franchise that left him with $500,000 in debt, he found his first success online as an affiliate marketer and was able to pay off his debt in 18 months. He went on to generate close to $50 million in sales over the course of a decade without ever having to go into the office. That sounds awesome. I love that how it has that mentioned in brackets. Before turning his focus to educating and inspiring others on how he did it. In addition to his work with Entre, he is a partner in a software company and maintains an active schedule of speaking and podcast appearances, including hosting his own podcast and YouTube series called Millionaire Secrets, where he interviews successful entrepreneurs. He's married, an active father to 4 children, and still enjoys playing the piano as often as possible. Awesome. Well, welcome, Jeff. Quite the bio there.
Yeah, that sounds like an interesting guy. You should have that guy on the show.
Yeah. Well, hey, look, there you are.
Yeah, he feels a lot more interesting than me, but that's what happens when you write your life into a bio, right?
That's pretty cool. Yeah. And I've started to go on more podcasts too, just to share my story. And it's hard writing a bio because I'm like, well, some of it, it's kind of true, but I still have a weird feeling, calling myself a podcaster. But now I'm like, hey, I'm almost 200 episodes deep. I'm a podcaster, right? I need to embrace that title. So yeah, Jeff, let's talk about it. We were just talking about how you said there's a little bit of a backstory there. You only went to sophomore year of high school, so you're a hardworking, overachieving high school dropout. Do you want to dive into that a little bit?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. As a technical matter, I guess I did complete about 2/3 of my junior year.
Okay.
At 2 different other schools. So the school I went to. We were talking about that before the show. It was a private school that essentially had one continuous school from kindergarten all the way through senior year.
Yeah.
So I went to that school for 11 years, kindergarten through sophomore. And then I was like always in trouble. And so I kind of always had this sense of like, well, you got to go to school because when you're young, that's what you do. But like, this isn't for me. These guys are preparing me for something that I'm not, I'm just not committed to. It'd be like, I don't know, training a sport that you didn't really like playing or something. And so I was always in trouble because I was always trying to keep myself interested or distracted or whatever it was. And finally, after my sophomore year, I didn't really realize it, but this school had an interesting practice where every summer they would send you a letter re-inviting you to come back the next year, which is kind of pretentious, but that was their MO. And sophomore year, I didn't get the letter. And so come around July, I think my parents might have casually mentioned to another parent, like, yeah, we didn't get that letter we usually get. And they're like, oh, that's a problem. That means he's not actually accepted for the next year. And they're like, what? Like, we never heard of that. It was like some unwritten bylaw of the school. And so they went and asked the school, like, so is Jeff, like, he's coming back, right? And they're like, no, we've made the decision to not invite him back. And so it was like July. I had like 6 weeks to find a school.
You were probably getting your school supplies and everything.
Totally. So they started like calling up private schools and boarding schools. And we didn't really want to go to public schools. Like after 11 years in private school, public school sounds like, it's going to be a disaster.
Crazy, right?
And anyway, they got me into this boarding school. I went to boarding school for a semester, contracted mono like the first week I was there. So I was sick. I got exemptions from all my classes. I basically just sat in the dorm. And that's when I realized, man, this school thing, like, it's just ain't my gig, man. I got to find something to do where I can actually support myself. because I had really successful parents, but they were also self-made and pretty tough love oriented, where they're like, listen, we're prepared to help you go to college, but like after you turn 18, we're not going to just pay for your life. Like you got to work, you got to, learn how to do what we did, which is like make your own life. And so I was like 16 at that time. And I'm like, okay, I got 2 years.
Right.
Or else I'm going to be stuck working at Whataburger or, I don't know, interning or doing something I don't want to do.
Great food, but probably not the best career.
Yeah, exactly. And for those who don't know, Whataburger and down in Texas is absolutely the best fast food.
Better than In-N-Out.
Better than In-N-Out. Thank you. Texas beats California every day of the week. But anyway, so because I had this medical exemption from my classes, I had like 3 months of just sitting alone in my dorm going, what am I going to do with my life? And I ended up finding this old abandoned music building because they had built a new music building at this school and moved everything over to there. But they had this old building that was basically empty and they still had a piano sitting there. And I started like just walking up to the music building every morning, because I didn't have to be in class. And I started teaching myself to play the piano. And I swear it took maybe a month of doing that every day, where like in my little 16-year-old brain, I literally thought God spoke to me
to play the
and was
piano.
like, Jeff, and he had a deep husky voice, like, Jeff, you should be a piano player so you never have to get a real job. And I was like, okay, God. And I started practicing like 10 hours a day. And by the time I went home for Christmas break, I had learned, I had taught myself to play like the first movement of Moonlight Sonata, which is really beautiful, but it's not actually that hard to play. But when I played it, I remember somebody being like, Jeff, that's really good. You taught yourself that in 3 months. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, okay. And so then people were like, I say people, mostly my parents, they're like, man, our son is pretty talented. Maybe he could actually do this. And so they actually bought me a piano.
Wow.
And we're like, hey, if this is going to be your thing, like they'd watch me be miserable in school for 11 years. And they're like, if this is your thing and this will make you happy, we'll support you. But by the way, our rules haven't changed. You're going to have to figure out how to support yourself with this if this is going to be your thing. And they ultimately ended up supporting me in dropping out of high school and taking 2 years, the remaining 2 years that I had left of intense, crazy, 10-hour-a-day, obsessive-compulsive practicing to become I wouldn't say professional caliber, but I would say by the time I was 18, I was pretty good. And I was on the track, and I ended up getting into college. Even without a high school diploma, I ended up getting into college on a music scholarship. And I was a professional player, piano player all through my 20s. I did actually end up finishing college. It took 10 years because I was a gigging musician the whole time. And then, I was a professional player all through my 20s. And then I don't know how much of the story you want me to keep telling, but by the end of my 20s, I had failed at multiple other entrepreneurial attempts and businesses and managed to get myself almost $500,000 in debt from a couple failed franchise restaurants that I had gotten all these bank loans to open. And that's when I went online going, man, I don't know, something's got to give, and I don't have enough money to start another business, and I'm certainly not going to make enough money as a piano player to dig out. It was literally $495,000 in debt, and over 300 of it was to the U.S. government.
Right.
Because they were small business administration loans, which are federal. They're guaranteed by the U.S. Treasury to the bank. So when the business is closed, the U.S. Treasury pays off the bank, and then they come after me. So I'm actually getting hounded. A lot of people are used to getting calls from creditors. I'm getting calls from the U.S. Treasury, and it's the same. It's roughly equivalent to owing the government $300,000 in taxes.
Right. They're going to come.
They're not going to leave you alone, man. They will hound you to the ends of the earth. And I was like, I got to figure something out. And that's what sent me online. I bought a course on affiliate marketing, figured out that I'm pretty good at sitting at a keyboard, whether it's a piano keyboard or a computer keyboard, didn't seem to matter. And I was able to pay off that debt in about 18 months. And it's just been I wouldn't say it's been a perfectly smooth escalator ride ever since. I've had some hiccups, but in general, I've been a digital marketer now for 12 years and can never imagine doing anything else other than, I like buying real estate, but I mean, as a day-to-day work application, there's something so amazing about being able to take a laptop and a mobile device wherever you want to go and make a great living.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, I feel like that's really inspiring for whoever's listening now, because maybe they're not going through such an extreme example of $500,000 of debt. I guess there's student loans and things like that where it just feels like it's hovering over your head. How am I ever going to pay that off? And I know plenty of people who did, double degrees and now they've got like 6 figures in debt and they're making minimal payments. It just seems like it's going to be something with them for the rest of their lives. So maybe they feel kind of in that space where you were like, how am I going to dig myself out of this? Piano playing is not going to really cut it. I mean, I guess if you created a course on it and sold it, maybe, but but actually playing the piano wasn't going to be the thing for you. So
no, I was living in Houston, and I had by my mid-20s, I had kind of reached the top of the Houston piano scene. Yeah. And I was playing gigs with 50-year-old musicians that had been doing it professionally for 30 plus years that had played, they had toured with some of the best in the world, but then they ended up back in Houston, or maybe they also played for the Houston Symphony or the Houston Ballet. Like I was at an elite level making $42,000 a year. Yeah. And because I was playing with people that were 30 years my senior, I could see where my life was going. And I had peaked. At 25 making 40 grand a year. And I could turn it into 60 or 80 grand if I wanted to teach a lot of piano lessons and play 10 gigs a week and be out till 3 a.m. every single night and never really be able to have a family, never take care of my health. And I mean, that was it. And that wasn't the life I wanted. That's why I kept trying to start businesses all through my 20s. But, that's easier said than done.
I love what you said there, though, about how you could see where you were going. And I mean, I remember clearly when I was working in oil and gas, I had a cubicle job before I'm in real estate right now. I have my license and everything here in Houston. But before I got into real estate, I had a cubicle desk job. And I remember they were celebrating the birthday of some guy who had just turned 60 or something, or maybe he had been there for 30 years. And they had like a funny inflatable balloon that's like caution, old man or something like that. And it was kind of bittersweet because I'm like, oh yeah, that's funny. And it's kind of sad because he's been here his whole life. And what does he really have to show for it other than, maybe he contributed to some of the tools that the company now owns and intellectual property, right? He doesn't even have his own name on the patent. Yeah. Or maybe he does, but it's owned by the company ultimately, and he doesn't get to benefit from that. And so I could kind of see where my life was heading. I was like, I don't want to be here in 30 years sitting in a cube. He's only 2 feet away from me, probably not making very much more than me, and he's still tied to the desk, right?
It sounds like Milton from Office Space.
Right.
You see that movie?
Yeah, Office Space. Yeah. He's the guy with the stapler, right? Where they put the stapler
that's Milton. Yeah, and they're like, now Milton, just pass. He's trying to eat a birthday cake, and he Yeah,
and then they stopped paying him, and he's just like working for free. Yeah, I didn't want that to happen. It's been a while since I've seen that movie, but it's good. But yeah, I like how you said what you could see the future and you didn't like it. And I even have an engineering friend. He likes to play the drums, and I went to one of his gigs. He's trying to do it as a side hustle or a hobby. And I mean, packing your drums up at 11 p.m. from some small bar that no one's even at, pre-COVID, still no one was there. It's kind of like a frustrating grind at times, as you probably saw. So thanks for sharing your story on that. What exactly did you do in affiliate marketing, if you don't mind sharing? Like, was it one product that kind of launched you, or were you doing everything?
Yeah, no, that's an astute question, because not all affiliate marketing is created equal. And the best thing that happened for me was being at such a massive rock bottom. I mean, it's like, if I had owed somebody, let's say I owed my buddy $4,000, I would have, or $5,000. What would I have done? I would have been like, listen, man, give me 6 months. I'm going to hustle up some extra gigs, or I'll start teaching some extra, lessons on the side, and I'll get you your $5,000. But when you owe $500,000 and you've never made more than 42 grand in a year,
you've got to think bigger.
you're in a way, it's the most oppressive feeling, but viewed through another lens, it's the most liberating feeling, because all bets are off. There's nothing you can hardly do to make your life financially make your life any worse.
Right.
So you start taking bigger swings. It's like being down by 20 runs in a baseball game. What do you tell your players? You're like, listen, I don't care if you strike out, swing for the fences. So I started swinging for the fences. I took my last $2,000 on that I had on my last remaining credit card. Thankfully, it was 2008. And the banks, they were still going through the Great Recession, but they hadn't totally caught up to like, hey, we need to
pull back,
collapse everybody's credit lines.
Yeah.
So I still had a credit card that I had $2,000 on. And I guess the banks didn't actually know that I was broke yet. And so I was able to run up $2,000 buying this training and these, I paid for my AWeber account and I paid for I bought like Adobe Dreamweaver because I knew I was going to have to build a website. And it was super archaic back then. Now you just go sign up for ClickFunnels and you have your funnel up and live in 2 hours. Back then I went and bought HTML for Dummies at the bookstore, started teaching myself how to create websites. And, I laugh when people talk now about how, this
so
technical
hard
stuff is frustrating. I'm like, come back to 2008 with me. And anyway, so yeah, I spent money that I didn't have to get a result that I was praying and desperate for. And anyway, so fortunately, here's where I was lucky. There's a zillion things online, and there's more now than there were then, but there were still plenty then that are like, promising you the world and teaching you, telling you about how great your life can be if you just learn these skills or buy this software or subscribe to this platform or enroll in this opportunity or whatever, right? It's kind of like MLM. Every MLM is supposedly changing everybody's life, but yet you go to the convention and it's like, well, where are the people who've actually made money? Like, can I meet one of them? And they're like, oh, there's 7 of them and they're all backstage.
Right.
So I, thankfully, I found what I believe was probably the most legitimate training platform on the internet for affiliate marketers at that time. And it was a platform called Carbon Copy Pro. I'm still good friends with the founders of that company to this day. They changed my life. They taught me these real skills. And probably the most important thing that they taught me was understanding the economics of the internet. That, listen, when you want to build and for me, it was cool because I was the only outcome that would solve my problem was $50,000 a month. Because I did the math and I said, okay, how much, and I called some people that knew, and I was like, how much runway do I really have before the US Treasury is like literally coming to my house and like seizing my music equipment or putting liens on everything or smashing my credit? Like, how much runway do I really have to try to put the fires out in my life? And they were like, a year, 2, definitely a year, maybe 2 at the most. Like, that's the window that you have to deal with the problem. So I owed $500,000. It was accruing interest. I still had bills to pay. I was like, I got to make $50,000 a month if I'm going to have any shot at this. And so I looked at the leaderboard in that community and I was like, okay, I want to find the people that are making $50,000 a month. It was like, depending on the month, it was like the top 5 or 10 people that made that much money. And I knew there were thousands and thousands of members of this community. I didn't know. I actually know now. I didn't know then. There were actually 40,000 people in this training platform.
Wow.
And I was basically saying on day 1 with no experience, I've got to be in the top 5 or 10 or else I have no shot and this whole thing's going to be a waste of time. That's like showing up. That's like being like, okay, I'm a good high school basketball player, but if I don't make the NBA, I should just quit playing basketball. Statistically, it's about that same probability, maybe even worse. And so it was so liberating, again, because every swing, everything I did was just around, I got to be in the top 5 or I got to be one of the best in the world at this. And it changed my calibration where like, it's not about mitigating risk. It's about doing whatever I have to do to be the best. And, which is pointless if you don't actually believe you can be the best. So it started with a really hard conversation in the mirror, like, Jeff, there's a lot of people trying to do this, and you need to be in a super tiny percentage at the top of this very large group. Do you think you have what it takes? And I thought, I know how to cram. I'm a self-taught, world-class musician who spent 10,000 plus hours sitting at a keyboard, mostly teaching himself how to do a very technical, very complex thing, which is, improvise over jazz harmonies. And I was like, this can't be harder than that. Because how many kids out there take piano lessons, and yet how many of them play the piano as well as I do? And I'm self-taught, and I didn't start till I was 16.
Wow.
So I was like, I think I can do this. And everything I did from there was just like, it was like, I'm going to be the best. And I worked 14 hours a day. I pushed myself. I took risks that I don't think sane people would take. You know, I made my first $4,000 commission check, and I spent it all running more paid ads within 1 week. How many people in my situation who, if you give them a check for $4,000, they're going, I'm doubling down. This is all going back into my business. I tripled my ad spend on, at the time it was Google search ads, and I burned that whole $4,000 in a week to refill the pipeline. Because here's the thing, $4,000 wasn't going to solve my problem.
It's a drop in the bucket, right? It's not big enough.
I needed that 1,200 more times, or what? Yeah, I guess maybe 120 more times, whatever the math was, right? So yeah, man, I was just going crazy. And here's what you asked about affiliate marketing. So this company, one of the reasons they were so valuable to me is they said, listen, there's a lot of affiliate marketing offers out there. Like you could sign, and that was like, I think Amazon had their affiliate program at the time. You could sign up as an Amazon associate. You could sign up for ClickBank. You could go promote all these offers, and you could sign up for an MLM and market it just like an affiliate marketer, but you're going to make $10, $50, $100 at a time, these small commissions that when you're trying to solve a $500,000 problem, they're not going to get you there. So they were like, you need to find a high ticket affiliate offer, something that can pay you big commissions. And you need to make your funnel entirely engineered to narrow to a point where you're pre-qualifying the right people that are willing to invest a lot of money in a high ticket offer that pays a big commission. And by the way, you're going to probably need to get on the phone to close those deals. So it's kind of a hybrid of affiliate marketing and phone sales. Man, that advice saved my life, because I went out and I found a financial education seminar company that sold these, $2, $10, and $25,000 immersive conference and travel experience packages where you would go away to an exotic island for 5 days and learn trading and learn investing from, billion-dollar fund managers. And it was an awesome company, but their all-in package was $25,000 and paid a $12,000 commission.
Jeez.
So I went out and I learned to affiliate market around focusing on a very specific niche of people that were serious, professional, well-capitalized people. And I would get on the phone and I would sell them on the value and say, listen, look at what just happened in the world. Your banker, your mortgage broker, your financial advisor, they don't have a clue what just happened because they all just lost you 50% of your money. Why don't you go learn from the ultra rich who all just doubled their net worth in the last 2 years because they're always prepared when the economy cycles down. How'd you like to learn investing from them? And I sold these packages. And so, people, how did you make $500,000 with affiliate marketing? Well, when you're generating commissions anywhere from $1,000 to $12,000, I probably sold 500 in less than 2 years. And I was taking, I was filling up my funnel. I was taking 15 calls a day, closing 1 or 2 deals a day.
Wow. That's awesome.
And that's what I did. I did that for 5 years, ended up generating, and eventually I built it out, some other monetization. I built a subscription platform and everything, but I did about $10 million in commissions in 5 years.
In just 5 years. I love what you said there about how, a sane person wouldn't take the $4,000 and put it back. I just had that conversation with a friend yesterday. He's working over at mastermind.com with Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi.
Yeah.
And he was saying that he heard a coach telling one of his clients that next time you get a big commission check, instead of just putting it towards his 20 or 30 grand in debt that he has, keep it in the account and get used to seeing that number of dollars in the account. Because if you're just taking that and spending it on other stuff, instead of like investing it in things that matter or going all in on your business, spending more on ads, it's just a drop in the bucket. It doesn't really fix the problem, and you don't really get to dig yourself out of that hole completely. So that's kind of like the message I needed.
And you never start to recalibrate your thermostat.
Exactly.
To get used to having money.
Yes. And I told him that too. Like I keep self-sabotaging right now because I'm at that stage where I'm growing and I'm getting, I was in disbelief. Can I really do it? And then I had 4 deals closed in a month and I'm like, cool, I guess this isn't luck. Like my work is actually working. Let me keep doing this. And like you said, as you work harder, you believe, and you've got to have that belief, which is, it's like a catch-22. How do you have the belief if you haven't done it before?
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
But I love how you said, I had to make it happen. And I knew that I would. Like
I didn't have the luxury of disbelief.
I love that. So you were back against the wall and you were in a deep hole.
Yeah. And I say now, like when people say they don't like their life, I mean, nobody actually says I don't like my life, but they're describing the ways in which they're dissatisfied with their life. And I'm like, listen, you probably don't have it good enough now because you didn't have it bad enough then.
Right.
So lean in. Maybe now needs to be your time of maximum dissatisfaction. But whatever is the catalyst, don't try to fight it. Embrace it, lean into it, and go, F it, man. This sucks. I'm supremely dissatisfied. Let that be your defining rock bottom so that you can actually bounce. You can't bounce off of a floor that you haven't hit yet.
Exactly. They say what rock bottom is a solid foundation to build upon. So
amen.
Hey, at least you're on a solid foundation. You're not on sand. If you're on rock bottom, you can start building. You've got some stability under your feet. Your feet are on the ground. And I love what you said there. You can't hit the bottom if you haven't been to the floor yet, right? You've got to bounce off of rock bottom sometimes.
One of the traps though, a lot of times people they'll get to rock bottom though, and they'll say, because, I used to be on the phone with people, and some of these people were like, man, I was a doctor making $400,000 a year, but this happened and now I lost all my savings. I mean, I worked with one guy, he was a plastic surgeon, and I referred him to these conferences. He was a plastic surgeon who used to make $1 million a year, but he lost everything in Florida real estate in 2007.
Yikes.
And he was starting over at 70 years old. So there were a lot of those guys, but I used to say, here's the deceptive thing about rock bottom is people say, well, there's nowhere to go but up. Actually, you can just go sideways.
Right.
And a lot of people do.
Yikes. Yeah, you don't want to stay down there. Sideways, you never hear about that, but it's true. You might just kind of keep yourself in that pit of sorrow and you won't ever dig yourself out, right? If you think there's no hope, you'll never try. And then you're really stuck. Wow. So that's such an inspiring story. I mean, I think there's so many lessons in there in the mindset that you have to have and just really getting uncomfortable. I think I've heard it said before that there are the people who've had it very hard and they've got that chip on their shoulder and it's given them motivation, right, to push forward. And then there's the people who have the silver spoon in their mouth, so they never really had to push and they're not motivated to really go that hard, right? So you've got to you're either moving away from pain or towards pleasure. And I think a lot of people try to move away from pain because as it starts to burn more, you take your hand off of the fire and you figure out what you need to do.
And they only move far enough to get away from the pain.
Right.
They haven't really solved the problem. And for a lot of people, and I've become very, very empathetic to this, people just don't believe that pleasure is actually out there. And I say pleasure, I mean, we both know we're talking about fulfillment and joy, not like superficial immediate gratification. I mean, real pleasure and fulfillment, a lot of people just don't believe it's out there.
Right. And I think social media and all those things, right? The grass is greener on the other side. You get what you want, and then there's something else. Oh, there's a shinier car over there, and that person has a better looking business. I have to work with all these clients I hate. That person's clients look great. And I think that plays a huge part in it, right? The comparison game, where we're never quite satisfied. We're always looking for that next thing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the data, and it's interesting. I use a lot of social media because my business
is on it,
is built on it. Since I went into the education business, I was an affiliate marketer for 5+ years, never did any social media. I owned a digital agency for almost 6 years, built it. That was the business that got me on the Inc. 5000 multiple times, built it to, we did $30 million in revenue. I sold it for multiple 7 figures. I was never on social media during any of that time. Like there are digital businesses you can build without social media, but in terms of education, since I said, okay, I'm going to become a professional educator and evangelist is really what I consider myself. People have to believe there is good news before they want to hear it. Right.
Right.
And since that time, I've really leaned hard into social media. It's a huge foundation of my business. And I am so intentional about approaching social media as a producer, not a consumer. Because consuming social media, I mean, which is ironic because that's what I'm relying on other people to do with my social media.
Right.
But frankly, I think my social media is pretty inspiring, but most of it is super toxic.
It really is. I just watched The Social Dilemma. I don't know if you've seen that on Netflix. Really interesting.
I saw the preview. I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, really interesting documentary. I probably should do a podcast episode just on my thoughts. But yeah, it talks about, the addiction of it, and like you try to take your phone away from you and people physically feel like, I don't know if it really said pain, but like, you're looking over to see who texted you, who was it, what was that ding?
They're like dope fiends.
Yeah, and the companies understand what drives you, and so the notifications, you're wondering what it is. But what you said there, you got to produce more than you consume, because it is ironic. Our customers, our clients, people who consume our content come and work with us, or they buy our products or services. And so it's a dangerous place to be, because you want to minimize your consumption, but you want to keep your production high. But you also need consumers out there, because they're going to watch all your stuff, become loyal fans, and then they're going to become your customers.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's talk about some of the stuff on here, like the 3 Ps of excellence. Can we dive into that a little bit?
Yeah. So I've had this really amazing experience with social media as a producer. And I never imagined, I'm a pretty big thinker. But in terms of the particulars, I don't think I ever could have forecasted exactly what's happened for me in the last couple of years. I was kind of ignorance on fire with like, okay, the last 10 years, my life has changed so much. When I was 28, I was a broke jazz musician paying off, a huge amount of debt. Now that I'm 38, I'm a affluent digital marketer. I'm remarried. I have an amazing family. I see them all the time. I literally wake up, I take my little girl to school. Like, just my life has changed so much. And it's really a function of the digital economy. It's about embracing the internet and the business opportunity of the internet. And so I sold my agency in 2018. I'm like, what am I going to do now? You know what? I just want to teach and share. I want the world to hear about this opportunity that unfortunately is really, really polluted by a lot of BS, hype, false promises, scammers, schemers, fake gurus. Like, if I wanted to, I could be CoffeeZilla. I could just go around skewering these gurus for a living, or at least for fun, frankly,
right,
because there's so much crap online.
You have an endless supply of people to roast.
Yeah, and it's because I am living proof. There's an enormous life-transforming opportunity in digital business that is getting polluted and frankly getting denied to people who likely very much need it because of all the people misrepresenting it, making it sound too good to be true, making it sound easy, selling it with, short-sighted dopamine hit marketing instead of like matter of fact, here's what it really takes.
Right.
I was like, I'm going to be the guy. I'm going to be the anti-BS guy who maybe no one will ever want to hear it. Maybe no one will ever buy it, but at least I'll be telling the truth. And so I started putting out all this content, and that was my approach. So that was September 2018. It's September 2020, 2 years since then. I took a very specific and intentional approach to how I was going to do it that was informed by what Frank Kern was doing at the time, which was, and I don't know if you're into Frank Kern, but he's like one of the best old school. I say old school, I mean old new school, like
right.
Internet-based direct response marketers. I mean, this guy is just a master. But I also know some people who know him, and he's a very, very private, kind of withdrawn, soft-spoken person. He's the last guy in the world that's going to be by nature out there trying to turn himself into an internet influencer. Like, he doesn't want cameras in his face. He doesn't want to have to be responsive on demand. And yet in 2018, he was out there doing all these Facebook Lives and starting to create all this content. And I was like, if Frank is creating this content, it's because it's got to be the most effective way to accomplish some goal that he's trying to accomplish. So I started kind of hacking his stuff. Like, what is he trying to do? And all of his stuff at the time, he's like, I fought social media for years. I didn't want anything to do with it. But now that I've cracked it, here's what I think you got to do. And he had this strategy that's like, building an affinity-based audience, just getting a lot of people to kind of know who you are, hopefully like you or hate you. I mean, some are going to like you, some aren't. That's fine, but at least they know you, right? and building this audience, and to do it as cheaply as possible. And the way that you do it as cheaply as possible is you don't try to sell anything. People on social media, think about it. When you see ads scrolling through your feed, if you see an ad for Unleash the Power Within from Tony Robbins, you go, do I feel like going to Unleash the Power Within right now? I don't know. And if you do, you click the ad. And if you don't, you're like, I don't know. But what you don't do is go, who the hell is Tony Robbins? I don't know that guy. Why is he in my feed? Get out of my feed, asshole. I don't want to hear from, because if they don't know you, if they don't know you, they respond negatively.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
So step one of social media marketing isn't to sell stuff. It's just to get known. And that's what I observed from what Frank was doing. And I was like, well, that makes sense, right? You don't go up and ask a girl to marry you on, your first meeting. So I was like, let me just be real and hopefully likable and hopefully insightful and figure. Plus, I didn't really know what I wanted to sell. What was my unique sales proposition going to be? Like, hey, I'm Jeff Lerner and I made a lot of money on the internet and it changed my life. So you can do it too. Go team. Like, that's not a sales pitch. That's not a product. And so I started this journey of just putting out huge volumes of content. I mean, I was creating at least one video every single day. And I started initially by creating pre-recorded videos that I would edit and I would upload, and I would create a version for Facebook, and then I would create a landscape version for YouTube. And it was just exhausting. So finally I was like, screw this. I'm just going to, the whole point is to be real and be transparent, be yourself. I'm just going to start going live.
Yep.
Unscripted, clubs and all, whatever. And this whole thing started to happen where, you talk about, this is a long-winded answer to your question about the 3 Ps of excellence. The 3 Ps of excellence didn't exist until I started going live all the time. And over time, figuring out, like, who am I? Who do I want to be? What am I trying to project in the world? What is it that I'm really trying to accomplish by helping people build this understand the digital economy? What has it really done for me? And the reality is, for me, it wasn't the quality of my life isn't the dollars in my bank account. The quality of my life is what the dollars in my bank account have allowed me to do. But there are plenty of miserable rich people. And the fact that I'm a very fulfilled, affluent person, isn't because I have more money or my money is somehow better. It's because I use the money to do different things. I use the money to take my family and, my kids' friends on great vacations. I use the money to afford good, healthy food and good supplements. And I use I'm pretty rigorous on my schedule. I use the money to pay for a gym membership. I use the money to, buy my wife the things she wants. I use the money in intentional ways to create the life that I have that ultimately is very rewarding. So I'm like, what I really should be talking about, and I kind of figured this out through a lot of clumsy conversations, is like, what people respond to the best isn't talking about how to make money on the internet. It's talking about how to use the combination of financial independence and time and location freedom to build a really fulfilling life. And ultimately it was more conversations around health and nutrition and family and parenting and being a spouse and going to therapy and working through old crap from childhood and getting over bullying and like all this organic human stuff that people were way more responsive to than like, and here's how I made $1,000 an hour setting up chatbots or something.
Right. It's more compelling.
Yeah, it's just a lot more. It differentiated me from all the other people online who are just constantly talking about the money. And that's where the 3 Ps of excellence kind of emerged. And it didn't just emerge as like, hey, here's a framework that I can give to other people. It actually emerged as a crystallization of the framework through which I wanted to live my own life. And I look at it now in hindsight and say, look, I did it for a year. For almost a year, I just put out content. I never sold anything. I didn't even have anything to sell. I was just building awareness and talking to the world, hoping somebody would want to listen. And they did. And after almost a year, I had an audience of actually, it was a little over 2 million people who had watched my videos on Facebook. And Facebook gives you all that data, right? You know, you can't see who the individual people were, but they tell you this many people watched this video for this many seconds and so on and so forth. So I had over 2 million people on Facebook that had watched me, listened to me, a lot of them multiple times. You know, I had gone from getting 7 views on a video to getting 1,200 views on a video, and getting no comments on a video to getting 45 comments on a video. And I had just built this awareness and this ongoing conversation with the world that wasn't just, here's what I sell. It was, here's who I am and here's who I am becoming. And now I say things like, the best way, or over time, you become what you project. If you want a better life, project a better life. If you want to be excellent, project excellence. And that's literally what happened for me. Over the last 2 years, I've become a person that is so much better, so much more evolved than who I was 3 or 5 years ago. I get up earlier. I work out more consistently. I'm a better communicator. I'm a better husband. I'm a better parent. I'm a better friend. I'm a way better business operator. I have way more money. Like, everything has changed. And it's not because of digital business. It's because of consistently projecting to the world who I want to become over time, and making the fundamental conversation of my life a conversation about excellence and evolution, rather than, well, this is where I'm at, and, you know, acting kind of helpless.
I love that, because you're becoming who you want to be, right? You're envisioning that person, and every day you're working to get there.
Yeah. And the fundamental is, I couldn't be who I want to be in this world if I didn't have a digital business that paid for my life.
That's so true.
I mean, and that's a fundamental for every human being on earth. And so it allows me to have the conversation that is, you know, speaks to my specific offer, which is like, hey, here's digital business training. Here's how to think like an entrepreneur. Here's how to operate like an entrepreneur. Here's how to, set up the different business models that I've been successful with. And here's everything I know, basically, that allows me to tee up that conversation in frankly, a lot more interesting and enjoyable way.
I saw a meme the other day, and I think it was posted by Cody Sperber, Clever Investor. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, money doesn't buy you happiness, but it buys experiences, and it also buys tacos. And, like, you know, who doesn't love tacos? Right. So it had some humor in there. But the thing that I really love there is that money buys experiences. Because, yeah, if you like to travel, if you want to fly first class, I mean, that ain't free, right? You gotta pay to play. And a lot of those experiences, they don't have to cost a whole lot. But yeah, flights, stay, you know, you can't just stay in a tent everywhere. I mean, I guess you could, but like you said, it's the money that can allow you to live the amazing life, give your wife great gifts, you know, have amazing experiences with your family. And I think that's really important for people to understand, because otherwise, if they have that talk of money being bad or money being evil, of course they're going to reject it. You know, they're going to self-sabotage, and they're never going to be able to grow their income.
Yeah, there's 3 things. I watched a Tony Robbins video about this, and I've heard it from other people too. And there was a study that shows happiness only correlates to money in a direct way up to a certain point. And it's depending on where you live and what country you're in and all that, it's, you know, anywhere between like 80 and 100 grand a year. It's kind of where the direct linear correlation between money and happiness stops. And there, beyond 100 grand a year, you can make yourself, you know, wildly miserable or wildly happy, but it's not a direct correlation.
Right.
But beyond, so what does correlate beyond that has a lot to do with what you spend your money on. And there's 3 things that they've identified that do tie money back to happiness beyond 100 grand a year. And it's basically spending money to free up your time. It's spending money to have great experiences, to create memories, basically. And it's spending money to bless other people. Well,
awesome.
Those 3 things all require money. And so you have this scientific data that's like, listen, if you want to be happy, free up your time, create great memories, and bless other people.
Which requires money. I love what you just said there. Everybody rewind that back 2 minutes, 1 or 2 minutes, and listen to that again. Because sure, I can go make sandwiches for the homeless, but I'm one person. How many sandwiches can I make, right? Versus if I'm making enough income, I can pay for 50 people to make sandwiches, and you're just scaling yourself up just like a business, right? You can get a lot more done that way.
Tony Robbins has served 500 million meals.
That is such a cool metric to be
That's
able
a
to
lot more
share.
rewarding than serving 5 meals.
Right, on a Saturday or something, like once a year.
Yeah, exactly.
That's incredible. Man, so we've talked about a lot of good stuff from your story, and I still can't believe I didn't realize you were from Houston. That's pretty cool. You know, we kind of share that in common. So how about digital real estate? Can we talk about that a little bit more as well?
Yeah, so that's the other concept that emerged through this ongoing conversation. Again, it's like all the things that are the main platform foundations of Entra, my education company, they didn't exist until I started talking. You know, it's not like I sat down and wrote out this business plan and this philosophical framework and this, you know, my mission statement and my values and all. I didn't have any of it. I just knew that I was excited. I was passionate. I had a genuine piece of, like I say, good news. I don't know what else to call it, about like, here's digital business. Here's what it's done for me. I believe it can do this for you too. But I didn't have any of the pieces necessary to like put a business plan together and, you know, go present it to an investor or even to present it to a customer and be like, here's what I sell. Here's what you can buy. None of it existed till I started talking. And I've really come to understand how much of the entrepreneurial process that really is, that like you have to be taking action, massive action, long before you have perfect clarity on what you're going to be doing.
The clarity comes through the action.
Totally.
Right?
Totally. And the biggest key to entrepreneurial success, and the thing that I've always, I think, excelled at since I started, you know, getting things figured out. I sucked at it for a while because I had 12 years of just going broke over and over, is you got to keep yourself excited. And for me, speaking these possibilities into the world was exciting long before it was clear. And so I kept doing it. And eventually the clarity comes. Now I have a, you know, company that's selling literally millions of dollars a month of online courses and trainings and coaching. I mean, it's a huge business now. But it all emerged because I just was so damn excited. I couldn't shut up about it, you know?
That's
so anyway, you ask about digital real estate. That's the other thing that, you know, as a marketer, you're always kind of looking for how do I simplify the core concepts of my offer in a way that's, you know, simple so people can quickly understand it, because you don't have a lot of time, especially when people are just meeting you or just being exposed to your business, but also differentiates me from the market and kind of has like almost a mystique. And I came up with this concept of digital real estate as like, that's literally what I'm doing. You know, I love the real estate business. I've been buying rental properties from as early as I could. You know, I still buy them to this day. In fact, we're setting up another company right now to start doing, you know, some more robust real estate deals. And that's a huge passion for me ever since I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad when I was way too broke to do anything with it. But, you know, one of the things that they said in that book and that you hear all the time is, you know, real estate has kind of a permanent base of value because it's the one asset that they'll never make any more of. You know, they build houses, but they're not going to print more land.
Yeah,
you know, gold, they can mine more gold out of the ground. They can't create more land. All the land is known. But actually they did when they created this thing called the internet. They created these two-dimensional surfaces. I have 3 of them in front of me right now. They're monitors. I have 5 because I have 2 phones too.
Nice.
That are like, they're effectively their land. They just happen to be vertically oriented, and you develop assets on them. And when you start thinking about them as real estate and you start applying real estate fundamentals to the way you build internet businesses, you immediately cut away 95% of the garbage that isn't built to last. I'm no longer interested in how to make $1,000 in a day on Instagram. I'm interested in how to predictably make $1,000 a month on Instagram in a way that's hands-free for the next 20 years.
Right.
That's approaching it like passive a rental property, income. Right? Yeah. You start approaching digital business the way with real estate fundamentals, which is basically 2 things: predictable cash-on-cash return and long-term asset value with the ability to appreciate and grow equity over time. And ideally growing that equity through an asset that's paid for by other people's money because it's cash flowing. That's how I approach internet business now. And it's changed everything to have that realization that, okay, the difference between really, really successful people online and the people that always seem to be chasing the next hot thing is really successful people approach their digital business like real estate investors.
That's incredible. That's a really important paradigm shift to have because, yeah, you could hustle all day to try to figure out how to make $1,000 on Instagram, or you'd rather take a smaller portion passively than trying to do it so actively where you're involved all the time, hours on end.
Yeah, exactly. And the way I look at it is I figure, okay, what's the average cap rate in real estate investing, within markets that I look at? It's, probably 8%. So that's the value. Say if I have a real estate asset that pays me 80 grand a year net, I can reasonably argue its value at about $1 million, right?
Right.
So 80 grand a year is, what's that? 6 grand a month. So if I can build an online business up to 6 grand a month predictably, I've essentially created $1 million asset for myself online. It's a heck of a lot easier to get internet business up the passive 6 grand a month or 7 or whatever the number is than to actually buy enough rental properties to get you there if you're starting from scratch or you're starting with very limited capital.
Exactly. And I know that's one of the biggest objections into getting to real estate as well. Yeah, I know I need to acquire property and get rentals, but I don't have money. And that's when people start off with things like wholesaling, where you can assign the contract for a wholesale fee. You just wholesale a bunch, flip a couple, and then buy a few.
And that's viable.
That's viable, but it's just not as scalable as quickly, like you said, I guess, in terms of there's only so much you can do unless you bring other money in or you get to that level where you're just starting to crush it. So digital real estate, I love that because, when you pull up a YouTube video or I pull up a new window, I can see anything on the internet, basically. I told my parents that. They asked me a question. I'm like, you can literally Google, like, monkey, like, throwing a banana, at a dog, and you'll find a video. Yeah. Right? It's there.
and if it's monetized, somebody may only be making $10 a month from that video. But right. $10 a month, that's $120 a year. That's arguably a $10,000 asset.
That's an amazing way of looking
and
at
if you
it.
compare it to a savings account, it's more like a $50,000 asset.
Wow. Because savings, I mean, checking, if you have all your money in a checking or savings account, it's just sitting there doing nothing. Not earning anything for you. It's just funny to see the little interest, like 20 cents. Oh, thank you. What am I going to do with that?
Yeah, exactly.
Like finding a couple pennies on the floor. But I know we got a couple minutes left and I want to be respectful of your time. I know you're a busy guy and you said you're doing like 6 of these episodes a week right now.
Well, I have my own podcast that we started about 4 months ago and we're kind of on a mission to get way ahead with recording. So I'm being pretty aggressive these days.
That's awesome. No, that's a great way to go. But I wanted to see if you had any last key takeaways that you want to share with the audience. Any questions that I failed to ask that you think would be important? Feel free to talk about whatever you like.
I mean, gosh, there's so much. And our training is, not to like pitch the training, but I mean, we have an introductory training that's $39 that is really is a long answer to that question, which is like, well, what would you recommend? I mean, if you really want to know what I recommend, buy my $39 course, take 8 hours to go through it, and you'll get a massive dose of like, here's how to make your life awesome. But, the simplest, I guess if I took like some really cool nuggets from that, I'm a huge believer in the concept of keystone habits and just habits in general, right? I mean, writing about Aristotle, Will Durant said one of my favorite quotes, which is that, excellence, what does he say? We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not a virtue, but a habit. And I just believe that so much. And in researching habits, in the book, The Power of Habit, I came across this concept of the keystone habits, or having one or more keystone habits. These are habits that you identify in your life that essentially are, they create a ripple through all your other habits. And everybody, in my experience, everybody has these. If you help shine a light on them, people do some thinking. They'll go, oh yeah, I have found that if I do X, I always tend to have a good day. Maybe it's, kiss your wife in the first thing in the morning, tell her you love her. Maybe, for me, it's get my ass out of bed really early and go to the gym. That's it. And then, so what I've tried to do now is structure my life in a really, really regimented way where I always build in a keystone physical, personal, and professional habit. So like I have I mean, the physical habit is I get up early and I go to the gym. The personal habit is I get up early and I go to the gym with my wife. So we have a date 7 days a week. We have a date, right? Most people are like,
gym.
I can't find time for date night once a week. We have 7 date days a week, 7 date mornings, and we still do a date night, right? So that's kind of my physical, that checks the box for me physically and personally. And professionally, my keystone habit is I have to create a substantive piece of content every day because it keeps my head in the game.
And it keeps you fresh because you're like, what am I going to talk about today? That's what I found from my own podcast. Like, oh, I need an idea. Let me, like, what did this guy make a video on? Oh, that's interesting. Let me pitch on my thoughts on that as well, right?
So anybody that I work, like we have a mastermind, anybody I work with in the mastermind, it's always like, what are your physical, personal, and professional keystone habits? And how many days have you missed? We meet twice a month. So I'll be like, in the last 14 days, how many days have you missed of checking all 3 of those boxes? And inevitably it's, people, and these are people that paid a lot of money to be in my mastermind, and they're still not doing it some of the time. I mean, it's just the hardest thing. And it doesn't sound like it should be that hard. Pick 3 things that are essential to do every day, 1 in each of those areas of your life.
And do that.
And just do it. And ideally do it first thing in the morning. That's it, man. If people only do that from listening to this whole conversation, 6 months from now, I promise your life will feel very different.
I wish I interviewed you like 3 years ago when I started my podcast, because I kind of just figured that out in the last couple of months where I defined my daily critical tasks, like my tactical stuff. 1 social media post, meaningful, 30 social media engagements, like meaningful, not just like, cool, I like your dog. Like, oh, that's so cool. I'm so happy that you got that puppy. Here's my dog, that kind of thing.
Right.
And so just really understanding what that is and defining it and then checking it off every single day.
And then if I could follow that up, I know we're running out of time. I'll be quick.
No, if you got a couple of minutes, I do too. I'm good.
Okay. Yeah. I'm good. I mean, the corollary to that is to accept a deep truth about success. It's kind of boring.
Yes.
It's not like
it's not sexy.
Yeah. You're not roping a unicorn every day. It's not sexy. Yeah. You're just doing very important strategic things consistently and well.
Like the slight edge, you're just doing 1% better every day. Yeah. And then you look back 2 years later or 10 years later, and you've dug yourself out of that $500,000 debt or the hole that you're in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Awesome, man. Well, Jeff, I really love this conversation. I appreciate your time and connecting with you. Where can our audience go to learn more, to get access to the $39 course and all of that good stuff? So we put together, knowing that I was going to be on your show, we put together a page for everyone. So if they'll go to millionairesecrets.com, which, by the way, I'll simply mention, great piece of digital real estate. I paid a fair amount of money for that domain, millionairesecrets.com. Awesome. It wasn't a $12 domain, but I use it for so much stuff. I'm building it into long-term a multi-million-dollar asset. How is that any different than going out and optioning a piece of land and developing an apartment complex? Right. You see how yeah, exactly. How they align digital and physical. But anyways, go to millionairesecrets.com/Chris B. Awesome. For you. And they can actually download a free copy of it's a very short book. It's a 30-minute read called The Millionaire Shortcut that basically explains, I call it the fastest way to become a millionaire in the new economy. It really breaks apart this digital real estate concept and how they can start putting the blocks in place to create their own digital real estate and really transform their life. So millionairesecrets.com/Chris B. They can get that book. They can subscribe to my YouTube channel. They can listen to my podcast and just get deeper into my world. Yeah. So everybody listening, go dive into his world. Jeff Lerner, once again, Millionaire Secrets. That's a crazy, awesome domain name too, by the way. So congrats on all of the success and just sharing your story. And I love that you have a podcast coming out so you can get your message out there more in the world. And let me know if there's anything I can ever do to connect you or help you on the podcast stuff. And I mean, I know you're way ahead of me on many other things, right? So, well, you got what sounds like over a year and a half ahead of me on podcasts. So yeah, I probably have a million questions for you. Yeah, man. If there's anything I can do to help, I mean, it looks like you've got the mic set up, you've got a good background set up, so you're well on your way, and you've got the knowledge, which is ultimately the mic, the knowledge, in a voice. That's all you need, right?
Wonderful.
Get your message out there. So, Jeff, thank you once again, and everybody, millionairesecrets.com/Chris D.